Aloud considered himself a god and fired a valuable employee. For the mistake, his company was fined $1,200,000 and he lost everything even. First of all, I wasn't the victim of this. When they received a call regarding this matter, the person I was with went over everything with me. I am sharing it since he isn't on Reddit. It is quite valuable. To safeguard the identity of the firm and its members, all names have been altered. In the U.S., listed buildings are significant. There is a procedure in place to protect historic and significant structures. A building is referred to as a listed building if it has historical significance. Strict guidelines govern its development, upkeep, and enhancement. It would be too simple to identify the parties involved if I were to be specific about the job involved. Mike, a friend of mine, is an expert in a very specific field of building. He uses a very old construction technique that hasn't been used in several centuries to restore and remodel structures. He only works on listed structures and conservation initiatives. A Grade 1 listed property needed work. ABC Limited, the principal contractor, was in charge of the whole construction project. There is one highly specialized aspect of the task. The architect provided the contractor managers with a list of eligible individuals because they didn't know anyone who had done it. My acquaintance was selected by the contractors since he was the earliest available. The proprietor of ABC Limited, the primary contractor, showed up on the job site 3 days into the project. As Mike put it, he was a boisterous jerk who was throwing his weight around. Ignoring him was merely part of Mike's work duties. One of his carpenters was directed to get the loudmouthed idiot coffee. The carpenter vanished from sight. The rowdy idiot kept on walking and whining about how much delays were costing him. Mike was asked where the carpenter was with his coffee by the loudmouth 20 minutes after he had vanished. Mike was unaware. Then the obnoxious guy told Mike to go find out. Mike made it clear that he didn't work for ABC Limited and was only there to work on the walls. The obnoxious idiot did not give a damn if Mike was a subcontractor or an employee, insisting that he continued to work for him and ordering Mike to get his coffee. Mike informed him that he was not a gopher and that his contract only required him to work on the walls. He also said that he didn't enjoy the way he was spoken to. The obnoxious guy wanted to know who subcontractor Mike worked for and sarcastically questioned whether he didn't like being spoken to in that manner. Mike said that it was only him and that he worked for himself. The boisterous bully asked Mike whether he knew who he was, calling him a day worker and making fun of him for having the audacity to respond. Mike said that he did. Mike was immediately dismissed by the obnoxious jerk, who also told him to leave the site. When Mike politely requested that he put it in writing, the rowdy idiot simply commanded that he leave right now. Mike informed the loudmouth that he merely needed evidence that he was being ordered to go out and began recording on his phone. The loudmouth bully seized Mike's phone wielding hand and screamed into it, threatening to have him ejected if he persisted in being on the property for more than 15 minutes, and once more ordered him to get off. Mike said there was no issue, started gathering his belongings so he could go. Mike was departing when the site manager for the contractor came by with a coffee for the boss. Made a lighthearted question about him leaving early. Mike clarified that their contract had recently expired and that he had been sacked by the boss. The site manager became alarmed and requested that Mike remain while he resolved the issue, but Mike departed. The site manager was concerned because he was aware of something that the loudmouth didn't TT. Mike had been the only qualified candidate for the job, and there were only 8 qualified candidates in the United States, all of whom had waiting lists. Mike arrived home to find that he had missed 14 calls. On Monday, that was. He had previously missed 2 workdays and had stated that he would only return if his employer offered a sincere apologies in person and compensated for the additional days lost. When I first met Mike, the site manager was calling him to let him know that the boss had apologized, but he couldn't do it in person since he was abroad. Additionally, Mike informed me that he had called the other experts to alert them, but that on Wednesday they had all received calls pleading with them to do the work, and none of them had agreed since they were completely scheduled. Additionally, Mike alerted the architect about the predicament. Under these circumstances, some dishonest contractors could attempt to fake the work and botch the task. Mike made the choice to adhere to his requirements, were an in-person apology and payment for all missing days. He felt sure he would succeed. I would have paid anything to see the in-person apologies. First update, Mike was told to threaten legal action if he didn't finish the job by the loud jerk, according to the site manager who called. The site manager apologized profusely and seemed quite uncomfortable. Mike informed him that he had proof he was dismissed and that he hadn't departed on his own volition. The site manager phoned back, saying that Mike could begin work the next day and that the loudmouth would apologize in person on Thursday. Mike declined, stating that the circumstances had changed in the wake of the legal threat one, an in-person apology prior to the start of employment. 2. Increased pay for days missed. 3. Full contract value should be paid in advance before work begins. 4. Everything has to be completed by Tuesday, the final day he can begin and still anticipate finishing in time for his next reservation. He would have just enough time if he worked the weekends as well. I questioned Mike about why he wasn't billing a hefty premium for the inconvenience. He clarified that taking advantage of businesses under time constraints wasn't the proper thing to do, and that it didn't look good. One of my pals is apparently a gentleman from the 18th century. Edit. When Mike claimed that just 8 people performed this task, I misinterpreted him. He did not mean his business, but 8 other enterprises. He calculated that there were probably approximately 22 persons who could accomplish it because they are tiny enterprises. Not as ridiculously little as 8, but still small. I apologize for misguiding you all on the number. Second update. Regretfully, there would be no regrets. Mike found out that the site manager had been dismissed for not informing the loudmouth in advance of the scenario. Mike got in touch with the Loud Jerk S second in charge, ABC Limited S operations director, and told them he was quitting his job, so no apology was needed. The operations director sincerely offered to renegotiate the money and expressed regret for everything. Mike informed him that his sole thought for returning to the position was out of courtesy to the original site manager. Mike had no desire to go back because he was no longer there. The operations director promised to get back to Mike, but he didn't say when. I questioned Mike about why he hadn't pushed on the reinstatement of the site manager as a requirement. Mike clarified that the corporation would have to decide whether to bring back the site manager since the loudmouth was too small-minded and immature to be given instructions from a skilled worker. It wouldn't happen if Mike insisted on it. The site manager was excellent at his work, Mike said, but he was just 4 years away from retirement, which made it challenging for him to get another position at 61. I liked Mike even more than I had 4 days before, I realized. Update 3. We returned from the pub at 2 in the morning. Mike had gotten a call from the fired site manager while we were gone. That afternoon, after Mike had given the architect an update on the issue, the architect got in touch with the fired site manager to let him know about a business that was looking for a site manager. Just before 9 p.m., Mike received a call from the fired site manager who wanted to thank him and ask what his favorite beverage was so he could give him a bottle. Despite not having landed the new work yet, the site manager was hopeful after the architect's suggestion. At first, Mike turned down the offer, claiming that the architect had secured the site manager's employment rather than him. According to the site manager, the site manager thanked Mike and stressed that he never had to deal with the annoying jerk again, stating that Mike had started everything off by telling the architect about his termination. We could only speculate as to the identity of the annoying guy, as Mike didn't say. Mike claimed he was having a Jim Beam Black Extra aged, and that he would only take a bottle if the site manager accepted the offer and consented to join him in sipping it. As Mike phrased it poetically, it appeared that the guy who had expertly chronicled this story on Reddit was in part of the whiskey consumption, instructing me to piss off and get my own drink. Everything was okay, but no one saw the loud-mouthed liar eat crow after he made a direct apology. That was something I had been anticipating. Extra details. Outside of work, Mike and the sacked site manager were acquainted. Although they belonged to 2 distinct charitable groups in the same town, they frequently worked together. He wasn't a knight, in my opinion, but you never know. Mike received a call from ABC Limited S operations director, who suggested that they kindly renegotiate the money and rehire the site manager. It was too late, Mike remarked. He couldn't possibly complete the task by himself before beginning his next assignment. If all went according to plan, there would be a minimum of 14 days of labor remaining. Mike had just 12 days remaining, assuming he worked both weekends when his next job began on November 7th. It was already too late. When the loudmouth was informed, I wished I could have been a fly on the wall. Many were inquiring as to Mike's actions. He said that disclosing would be so obvious that it would be better to just provide his own name and address. Apologies. It required 6 years to become proficient and at least 11 years to become a master craftsman, which explained why there weren't many individuals in his industry. When the task was finished, the jobs needed the presence of at least one master. Update 4. The site manager who was sacked did not receive a promotion. The new firm met with him, but ultimately opted not to hire him. The explanations were ambiguous. Mike was going to talk to him about it on Friday. It wasn't Mike's fault, but I could see he felt awful about it anyhow. The site manager declared that he would pursue legal action for wrongful termination. Although reality isn't always like that, I had assumed that this would be a win-win situation. Updates on the fired site manager. The circumstances weren't as dire as we initially believed. The business he met with on Wednesday gave him a fixed-term contract for 16 months on the construction of a distribution center, but they did not recruit him in the traditional manner. Positively, despite its shortcomings, it paid a little bit more than ABC. It was better than nothing, 16 months. Additionally, if a new project came in, there was a chance the new business might decide to extend the contract. Mike had heard that a Dutchman was going to be brought in to finish the work. Mike informed me he felt he knew what was going to happen, and he smirked. Mike believed the Dutchman would employ a similar but distinct approach that was applied to several 19th-century structures in Amsterdam. While it appeared comparable, there were two key differences in the materials. Mike made the decision to hold off. He intended to let the Dutchman complete the work and get paid, after which he would recommend that the customer and the planning department verify the two parts. The Dutchman would have had to tear it out and start again since he would have used the incorrect materials if he hadn't known about the 17th-century American technique. When it came to this kind of labor, they were very rigorous. I should not have hoped for this so much, but I did. I am a small-time guy. Further details. A lot of people wanted to know when Mike would find out if the Dutchman did the work correctly. Given that there were few vendors for one of the products, Mike indicated he may find out quite quickly. Mike would be informed if the Dutchman got in touch with them. Mike claimed that they gossiped like old ladies and that it was a small, incestuous portion of the business. Corrected. We all talked like sage old ladies. Mike intended to stay silent until he received word that the work was completed and the Dutchman had been paid if he didn't go there. He did not want to jeopardize the man's investment, according to Mike. He didn't want the Dutchman to come here dragging his ass and return home empty-handed because he was too eager to throw stupid bollocks in it. The man needed to make a livelihood. Mike clarified that the noisy jerk and foolish bollocks were the same guy. If the Dutchman worked weekends, he should be able to finish the task in approximately 5 weeks. Mike would know when the task was completed since he knew a lot of individuals at ABC headquarters as well as many on the job site. For 4 to 5 weeks, I had to pretend that I wasn't a 7-year-old girl who was giddy with excitement about Christmas approaching and sit on my hands. Update 5. Mike was informed that the Dutchman started working right away. Had a typical building supplier provided the materials. Even if they sold them there, the supplies required to complete the task correctly were too large to transport from the Netherlands. He hadn't placed an order with the UK vendor. Out of the 3, only one had sufficient experience for the task at hand since they completed it for Mike. Therefore, he wasn't using the proper stuff, unless it was arriving via road and ferry. If Mike wasn't upset by the loud jerk, he wouldn't let it go unreported. He was a stickler for historical authenticity and truly cared about the structures he worked on. I was now forced to wait for 4 or 5 weeks. Mike claimed the Dutchman might complete sooner if he utilized more contemporary materials. If you stayed in the 17th century, it took 4 weeks. I had grown quite fixated on this work. Mike noticed I was pursuing information again when I contacted him earlier on a false pretense. Mike made a joke about installing a body camera so I could see and record everything live. Mike scoffed at my half-serious suggestion, stating he didn't want to discuss every part of his life, especially not intimate ones. After instructing me to shut up, he hung up on me and called me a neat freak. The customs of the United States were no longer the same. To be honest, I do lead a life. I never imagined that I would get to update 6 when I first started writing this. A lot of news. 2 weeks ago, the Dutchman completed the project and left. Hans, the Dutchman, was described by people who knew him as a diligent worker and a nice guy. To reduce the expense of his stay in the U.S., he worked 12-hour days and weekends. Mike was glad he held off on reporting the work until Hans received payment, given what he knew about Hans. Mike already had a gut feeling that Hans wasn't completing the work properly. None of the 3 companies he contacted had any orders for the site, despite being the sole U.S. providers of the most esoteric element involved. Hans may have brought it in from abroad, but no one there had noticed any material orders from outside. As arranged, Mike got in touch with Historic America, the client, the architect, and the local authority's planning department. He tried to be as non-intrusive as possible while expressing his worries. He then bided his time for them to look into it. Even though it just took a few days, I felt engaged in something that wasn't my business and was nervous. The architect provided the initial report, which verified that the incorrect materials and technique were employed. Instead of using the necessary 17th-century American procedure, Hans had employed a 19th-century Dutch methodology. The architect was enraged. This call was explosive. Mike had never heard the architect use such words before. The loudmouth was dubbed a ignorant cockwomble by the architect. I had no clue what a womble was until Mike inquired. In an attempt to separate himself from the situation, the architect stated he would speak with the local government. Mike heard much of the rest second or third hand. He knew a few ABC employees. I inquired as to whether it was hard to get them to speak. Mike claimed they were unable to answer the phone quickly enough. After inspecting the work, the local authority planning officers informed the contractor that it was completely incorrect and needed to be replaced. During their examination, they discovered another problem, which I can to mention since it would reveal which buildings are implicated. A portion of the interior structure of the building was damaged by the contractor. It was taken down and replaced with a contemporary support, which was prohibited. The significance of the previous building was unknown to both the project manager and the new site manager. Who would have thought to order a replacement? It was, of course, the obnoxious jackass. Anything that is destroyed on this kind of property is illegal and may result in jail time. There is a hefty fee even if they escape jail time. Everyone in the corporation was rejecting responsibility and pointing fingers now. The project manager had email proof that the loudmouth had authorized the roof structure S removal, notwithstanding the loudmouth S denials. The customer ordered all contractor workers off the site for a thorough assessment on Wednesday, the 22nd. They were nearly likely to let the contractor go. They planned to sue ABC for the projected $1,200,000 cost of repairs and replacements. In a letter to the contractor, the local authority's planning department detailed their transgressions, their intention to conduct an inspection, and the potential for legal action. Staff said that the day the letter arrived, the loud-mouthed jerk went to his attorneys. An hour after the story broke, Mike got 3 calls from ABC staff members. We were now awaiting the following one, Client S inspection. They may dismiss the contractor and leave ABC unpaid and with a hefty repair fee if it was determined that ABC had caused damage to the site. 2. Experts in conservation check local authorities. They would take ABC and the offending party to court if they discovered characteristics that had been deleted. The fact that the damaged internal structure could not be rebuilt made Mike very upset. The S what S been there, doing its job for 450 years, he continued, until the jerk shows up, at which point it vanishes, and that S it. Never once more. He seemed like he was truly depressed. That loud ass probably wished he had fetched his own coffee on that particular day last month. Edit: no threats of prosecution were made in the letter to ABC. It told them that an expert will be sent by the planning department to assess the building, specifically the damaged area. If prosecution occurs, it seems to take an eternity. I apologize to everyone I misled. Like everyone else, I was eager to grab a pitchfork and assume the worst. The tale had progressed and became more serious by the time it reached Mike. Although it is more likely to take 8 months rather than 8 days, the loudmouth jerk may face legal action. I've now made 2 corrections since I began. I committed to updating more diligently in the future. I am to blame, not Mike. Mike cautioned me against letting everything I hear come out right away. He is, as always, correct. Information sought. A few inquired about the fate of the initial site manager who was let go. Mike, the site manager, and the other 2 of us got together at the bar. Subject to insurance checks, he had a new employment, that much was certain. He began work on February 12th. ABC gave him 4.5 months' salary in one go, in lieu of notice, and allowed him to keep the automobile until March. He claimed that although his wife reminded him that he could collect his pension early and that he detested both the firm and the shady jerk, he was first rattled up by the firing. He stopped worried when the architect contacted regarding the distribution center project. He was beginning a new job with a little greater income, but he also received time off. If they had employment, there was a good chance the corporation would keep him. He considered suing the loudmouth for unjust dismissal at an industrial tribunal, but because he wouldn't be losing money, he changed his mind. He expressed his excitement over defeating the idiot in court. During his spare time, he raised money for charitable causes by constructing a better sleigh and reindeer and by dressing up as holiday characters. He delivered the whiskey he had promised Mike. The site manager persisted, insisting that guys from Alabama honor their promise, even to those in the North, despite Mike's objections. Even the alcohol was half price. He laughed. We made fun of him for being a true Alabaman. For those who don't know, Alabamans are known for being straightforward and frugal with their finances. We laughed about me being from the North before heading to the site manager's garage to sip whiskey and take in his sleigh building skills. Will they give me freebies if I tell you how delicious Jim Beam Black Extra Age tastes? From Texas, I am not far from Houston. Either go free or perish. You've undoubtedly noticed some bad grammar as a result. I am so drunk on whiskey that I am hesitating right now. It is past my bedtime because it is 3 a.m. for now. Bye. Update 7. It looks like some karmic punishment is coming. A cautious interview with the noisy jerk hinted at potential legal action. The project manager experienced the same thing, and the sacked site manager came next. Since the decision to remove the roof supports was taken after he was fired, the site manager felt assured. He stated the noisy jerk would have attempted to put the blame on him if he had been present. Fortunately, the project manager had email evidence that the loudmouth had placed the transaction. The project manager was intimidated by the loudmouth who had attempted to get him to suppress the email. The project manager notified the investigators despite the threats. According to my legal acquaintance, it is illegal to tamper with witnesses or delete evidence. The cackling idiot continued to excavate a bigger hole. Though he was undoubtedly in pain, I would be sad if he avoided facing legal repercussions. Update 8th August 15th, 2020. I have an update on the current state of affairs. Mike found out some unexpected information about the loudmouthed guy recently. It seems that the loud-mouthed idiot attempted to launch his own construction business following his dismissal from ABC. But rumors about his past disasters had spread, and he was having a hard time landing any jobs. Everyone was reluctant to take a chance on someone with such a dismal track record when it came to managing listed properties. In the meanwhile, there was a bright spot for the sacked site manager. One non-profit group that works to preserve historical places in the U.S. reached out to him. They extended to him an offer of employment as a consultant, which included flexible hours in addition to a competitive salary. The site manager was happy to take this new post, which allowed him to exploit his significant knowledge without the burden of supervising day-to-day construction activity. It appears that Hans, the Dutch carpenter, did not make the error that was first believed. Upon his return to the Netherlands, he went over his work and saw that, in fact, he had used the incorrect materials. With a strong sense of professional ethics, Hans contacted the customer and the planning department to offer his help in fixing the error. Everyone was struck by his honest gesture and eagerness to make amends, and they made the decision to have him return to the United States to assist with the adjustments. Mike kept a tight eye on him this time to make sure everything was done using the proper historical procedures. Mike has been managing several projects and has been busier than ever in the midst of all of this. He has remained a rock for all those concerned, maintaining his high standards of craftsmanship and commitment to historic building preservation despite the mayhem. He continues to be a help to the site manager and even extended an invitation to Hans to stay with him when he returns to the United States. The main news is that the loudmouth was let go. After consulting with 4 ABC workers, Mike made the announcement. They were eager to inform him. Mike fired the obnoxious jerk and stated that the bulk of the shares were owned by his brother and cousin. Lisa, the accounts manager, claims that they were afraid that fines and contract loss would bankrupt the company. They were pleading with the client to allow ABC to return in order to complete the contract, which included persuading the client that the rowdy jerk would not be participating. After being dismissed, Lisa claimed the obnoxious jerk cried out and threatened to harm others, necessitating his escort off the property. He was phoning the staff and was taken aback when they declined to assist. Lisa called him crazy for believing that the staff liked him and wanted to stick with him. I made a joke about wanting to witness the loud-mouthed jerk-s response. Nothing the scrot didn't deserve, according to Mike. He made a major comment that he was not yet able to reveal. I made fun of it, but he refused to back down from a commitment. He clarified that it wasn't to his secret to reveal, stating that his wife was upset because she felt he should tell her everything. We modified Lisa's work title and identity to keep the innocent safe. Mike wouldn't be able to break the news for months. Upon inspection, the customer discovered 2 parts that were deemed unacceptable, the region that was destroyed and the portion that Hans had completed in place of Mike. They were not happy at all. The local government often suspected the owner of a listed building when it sustained damage, but in this instance, the owner was a committed preservation organization. It bothered them to have to establish their innocence. Mike said that it appeared they had written off ABC and sent out bidding invitations to other conservation-focused firms. He used jargon to describe it, which I couldn't grasp or recall. I inquired as to if this meant they wanted pricing quotations. Mike affirmed that in a patronizing way. The narrative stalled as we awaited legal action, which disappointed me because I had anticipated it would culminate with the noisy jerk suffering. Life in the real world moves slowly. January 23rd, 2020. This is Sam's wife. Hello. He requested me to accept my apology for not speaking. On January 9th, he was involved in an automobile crash. He wanted to be on the internet for some time, but he should fully recover. I assured him that it was just Reddit, but he was fixated on keeping people happy, so I would provide an explanation. Here I am explaining to the public why he hasn't completed the tale. 2020, March 4th. Hello again, Sam's wife. More than 200 direct messages were sent. I appreciate your thoughts and best wishes. I have read each one to him. I will address the 3 most often asked questions. 1. What became of Sam? A big vehicle struck him from behind when he was waiting to get off the road in his automobile. Between the lorry and the one in front, his automobile was destroyed. His nose, left orbital and cheekbone, left radius and ulna forearm, 4 bones in his left hand, right tibia and fibula lower leg, and 4 ribs, one of which perforated his left lung, are among the numerous fractured bones he now has. His left eye has some transient impairment to its center vision. His right hand has damaged tendons, necessitating more surgery. His wounds had left him with 122 stitches. He seems disorganized, but he could bounce back without suffering long-term harm. He is unbreakable. I was in pieces the first time I saw him in the hospital, covered in tubes, cables, and blood, unable to talk. He always knew the perfect thing to say, and within minutes he had me giggling. His inability to utilize his hands is the main source of irritation for him. 2. When will the narrative be updated by him? It could take some time. I can tell a narrative like Sam, but I could ask Mike for an update. Sam is the funniest dude I've ever met, but I may be prejudiced. I can even breathe when I laugh so hard when he and Mike start. I've instructed him to concentrate on his recuperation for the time being, but if he gets bored, I'll simulate a secretary and he may tell the narrative. He never quits on a project he undertakes. I wish my self-control was even close to his. 3. Is it possible for him to get cards, presents, or cash for missed wages or medical expenses? I appreciate that, but I don't need to. Being in the U.S., healthcare is provided at no cost. He has no desire for anyone's money. We've long sponsored the American Cancer Society if anyone feels like to help. Last update. The noisy jerk versus Mike tale makes the company owner wonder if they really know who they are. The 24th of May, 2020. My spouse, Sam, owned this username, slightly annoyed. He wrote about a businessman he dubbed the noisy jerk and his pal, Mike. Sam had been keeping the tale updated up to his January vehicle accident. He requested me to let everyone know when he was on the mend. Regretfully, Sam died a little more than a week after I wrote my last message. He appeared to be getting better, then all of a sudden he lost consciousness and passed very swiftly. Despite all the efforts of the team, it was likely the accident that caused his burst artery. I apologize for the delay in my updates. I was unaware of this website. Rereading Sam's statements, I noticed how many people were still waiting for information. Please forward this if you know of anyone who is awaiting a response. We are grateful to the hundreds of people who left well wishes. I apologize for ignoring you for so long, but I was in a stupor. It would not have pleased Sam to leave everyone hanging. We appreciate everyone who made a donation to the American Cancer Society, even though it seems odd to see funds sent under slightly annoyed S name. We appreciate the moderator's explanations on how to notify everyone. The 26th of May, 2020. I sincerely appreciate all of your kind remarks and electronic hugs. I have spent hours crying. The right type of sobbing after a loss is difficult to describe. People who have experienced a loved one's death can relate. The majority of today's sobbing was constructive because of your letters and posts. I was reminded of Sam's amazing traits and the reasons I loved him so much by your remarks. It took me 10 attempts to finish the update when I had the courage to start. I am quite happy I did. I appreciate the moderator giving it one last push. It made me understand that, in addition to what Sam would have wanted, I also wanted to complete the task he began. I'll find out what occurred by talking to his pals. I'll stay informed about everyone's results, even if I already know part of it. It will be merely the facts, nothing like Sam's writing. Although I lack Sam's narrative skill, folks were eager for the story to end. It will have to do with the simple realities. Please extend your forgiveness. Mike has been a rock for me this year, so I'll talk to him. I am hoping he will spill the beans to me. Updates will come as soon as I can. You guys have helped more than you realize, so thank you very much. 26-5. Your remarks made yesterday a better day. I woke up irritated today and was unable to get over it. In the U.S., today is a public holiday, and I can just stop wondering what we would be doing if Sam were here. He never threw away a vacation. I'm upset because some moron who couldn't wait to respond to a text message caused me to lose the finest person I have ever met. I just cannot get over how unjust and ridiculous this is. He will do a few years in prison, but Sam won to come out of it. I apologize I had to rant. Don T, use your phone while driving, please. And Don T, put up with those who do the same. 2020 March 8th. 2 items. First of all, I want to thank every one of the commenters. Your kind remarks on Sam made me feel better. It took me a while to let you know of his demise because I didn't believe they would, but they were helpful even if they made me weep. Secondly, I am sorry I didn't get back to every remark. I could talk about Sam all day on certain days. On other days, I cry every time I think of him. It's not that I didn't read your comment if I haven't replied. I went through them all. I was unable to respond since I was in a poor place. I'll get back to everyone eventually, just as I did with the cards after his burial. I answered all 322 of them, even though I didn't believe I would be able to go through them all since it appeared like an endless mountain. One of the positive habits I picked up from Sam is to always finish what I start. I only want to hear him refer to me as Cariad one more. Cariad is the Welsh word meaning love, not my name. The 29th of July, 2020, 3:10 a.m. There are hundreds of messages, and I haven't been on for a few days. I wanted to give you an update on what happened to the folks Sam wrote about since I can sleep. It will be facts alone, without any of Sam's flair or fun. I am doing the best I can. Site manager. He got right into the distribution center project as scheduled. Sam had said that he and Mike didn't like the set 16-month contract, but most workers were furloughed or laid off following the coronavirus outbreak. The site manager's contract required the corporation to continue paying him in full. What appeared to be a drawback ended up being a benefit.